You just did it. And I sat there, and without making a sound, big, huge tears just streamed down my face.
At 73, Audrey Meadows shattered decades of silence with a revelation about Jackie Gleason that stunned fans and Hollywood alike. For years, the story behind their iconic partnership on The Honeymooners remained shrouded in mystery. What made Audrey stay quiet for so long? And what powerful truths did she finally decide to share? This is not just the tale of two television legends, but a hidden saga of tension, loyalty, and unspoken struggles that shaped one of the most beloved comedy duos in history. Get ready, because what Audrey revealed changes everything you thought you knew about Jackie Gleason. When Audrey Meadows first stepped into the audition room for The Honeymooners, she could not have anticipated the obstacle waiting for her. Jackie Gleason, the show's creator, its star, and the towering force behind its every decision, was unimpressed. To his eye, Meadows seemed all wrong for Alice Cramden. She was poised, polished, and elegant. Her features suggested refinement. Her demeanor carried the grace of privilege. Gleason took one look at her and thought, too glamorous. Alice Cramden, as Gleason saw her, was not a woman of polish or privilege. She was the sharp-tongued, streetwise wife of a blustering Brooklyn bus driver. She was tough because life demanded it, quick-witted because survival required it. To Gleason, Audrey Meadows did not look like the woman who would stand at a cluttered kitchen table and fire back at Ralph Cramden's booming threats. She looked more like the sort of woman who would never set foot in that kitchen at all. But Audrey Meadows was not easily dismissed. She wanted the role. More importantly, she understood the role. And so, with remarkable resolve, she devised a strategy. The very next morning, Meadows arranged a photo shoot, not of glamour, but of grit. Gone was the makeup. Gone were the tailored clothes. She dressed instead in a worn housecoat, tied her hair up in curlers, and fixed her face into the weary expression of a woman beaten down by daily burdens. The transformation was startling. Where once there had been a polished actress, now there appeared a tough, no-nonsense housewife, standing in her modest kitchen, worn thin but unbreakable. Meadows sent the photographs directly to Gleason, without her name attached. He studied them carefully. This, he declared, was exactly the woman he had been searching for. The irony was immediate and sharp. The actress he had rejected the day before was the very woman he now insisted was perfect for the part. When the truth was revealed, that it was Audrey Meadows in those photographs, Gleason, perhaps reluctantly, agreed to cast her as Alice. It was a decisive victory for Meadows, but also a telling prologue. From that moment on, it was clear. Jackie Gleason's vision ruled The Honeymooners. To succeed, Meadows would need not only talent, but strategy, patience, and resilience. On screen, she would become the calm, razor-sharp counterweight to Gleason's volcanic Ralph. Off-screen, she would learn to navigate his mercurial moods and unyielding authority. Her clever gambit to secure the role did more than land her in television history. It revealed the quiet strength that defined her career. Audrey Meadows was no glamorous outsider. She was Alice Cramden, through and through. Audrey Meadows and Jackie Gleason were, on screen, the perfect comedy pair. As Alice and Ralph Cramden, they gave television one of its most iconic marriages, built on barbed wit, sharp banter, and a tenderness that always lingered just beneath the sparring. Millions of viewers tuned in not only to laugh, but to feel that this couple, living in a small Brooklyn apartment, was real. Their arguments, their reconciliations, their constant push and pull, it all rang true. But what audiences never saw was the fragile reality behind the laughter. Off-camera, the partnership was far from effortless. The easy chemistry that seemed so natural was, in fact, forged in tension, discipline, and the sheer force of will it took to work under Jackie Gleason. Gleason was not just the star of The Honeymooners. He was its architect, its driving force, and its absolute authority. Known for his mercurial temperament, he controlled every aspect of production with an intensity few could match. Scripts were dissected line by line. Every gesture, pause, and inflection was scrutinized. Even the timing of a single laugh line could spark his explosive disapproval. To work with him was to enter a world ruled by one man's singular vision, a world where precision and obedience were demanded in equal measure. For Audrey Meadows, this environment was both a trial and a test. As the leading lady, she bore the full weight of Gleason's moods, adapting constantly to his volatility. Yet Meadows possessed a rare steadiness that balanced his storm. Where Gleason demanded domination, she offered calm. Where he erupted in frustration, she remained measured, ensuring that the performance never faltered. Her skill went beyond comedic timing. It was her ability to maintain equilibrium amidst chaos that kept the show on track. At times, the studio felt less like a production space and more like a battlefield of creative wills. Scenes emerged not from harmony, but from friction, his fiery temperament clashing with her quiet resilience. Yet it was precisely this tension that gave their performances their undeniable spark. Meadows' composure became the perfect foil to Gleason's bluster, and the audience, blissfully unaware of the struggle behind the cameras, experienced only the magic of their interactions. This dynamic, fraught, exhausting, yet strangely symbiotic, was the alchemy that made the Honeymooners unforgettable. Without Gleason's force, the show might have lacked its bite and edge. Without Meadows' endurance, it might have collapsed under the weight of his intensity. Together, they achieved a balance that transcended the difficulties of working with one another, creating comedy that was both razor-sharp and deeply human. The result was not merely a television program, but a portrait of marriage that still resonates decades later. Their partnership demonstrates that sometimes the very conflicts that make collaboration challenging are the ones that transform it into art, timeless, electrifying, and enduring. Behind the laughter, the wisecracks, and the unforgettable catchphrases of the Honeymooners lay a very different story, one marked by pressure, control, and constant tension. At the center of it all was Jackie Gleason. To the public, he was the Great One, the charismatic face of the show. But behind the curtain, Gleason was more than its star. He was its absolute creative authority. Every detail, from the writing to the casting, from the staging to the delivery of each line, fell under his command. His vision was singular, and his word final. For those who worked alongside him, collaboration was less a discussion and more an exercise in compliance. This level of dominance came at a cost. Gleason famously despised excessive rehearsal. He believed the spontaneity of a fresh performance, the electricity of a first take, was what gave comedy its spark. And so, he often demanded only one run-through before the cameras rolled live. For his cast, this meant stepping onto the set with little safety net, forced to match Gleason's instincts in real time, knowing that a single misstep could set off his unpredictable temper. For Audrey Meadows, this was the crucible of her career. A consummate professional, she valued preparation and discipline, but those tools were of little use in Gleason's world of improvisation and volatility. Instead, she relied on something far more difficult: emotional endurance. When Gleason erupted, Meadows absorbed the force. When he pressed for control, she gave steadiness in return. Never flustered, never shaken, she matched his fire with composure. And in doing so, she became the anchor that allowed the chaos to function. Her role extended beyond the screen. She was not only Alice Cramden, the sharp-witted wife who kept Ralph in check. She was also the stabilizing presence that kept the Honeymooners itself from spinning off course. Day after day, she endured the exhaustion of live television, the burnout of writers bound by tight formats, and the stress of Gleason's unyielding grip. The triumph of the Honeymooners was not effortless. It was earned through tension, resilience, and sheer will. And while audiences never saw the strain behind the comedy, they felt the result. Performances so sharp, so alive, that the show became a timeless piece of television history. Audrey Meadows' quiet strength was the hidden ingredient. Without it, the brilliance of Jackie Gleason might never have translated into the enduring magic that viewers still cherish. For decades, Rumors swirled about what truly lay behind the partnership of Audrey Meadows and Jackie Gleason. To millions of viewers, their marriage as Ralph and Alice Cramden seemed so authentic, so natural, that it was easy to imagine sparks flying off camera as well. Their banter felt lived in, their quarrels carried the rhythm of truth, and their tender reconciliations seemed almost too heartfelt to be scripted. But the truth, as Meadows herself explained, was far more nuanced. Their on-screen kisses and embraces, those fleeting gestures of tenderness, were carefully choreographed, often staged to avoid any real intimacy. The illusion of affection was part of the performance, crafted for television. Yet behind that illusion lived something real, a deep and enduring bond, one not born of romance, but of loyalty, respect, and a shared devotion to the craft of comedy. Meadows often spoke of Gleason with surprising warmth, remembering the contradictions that made him so difficult and so magnetic. He was volatile, yes, and often unpredictable, but he was also captivating in ways that few could resist. Gleason's comic brilliance was undeniable. He could slip into characters with ease, mimic voices to perfection, and contort his face into expressions that left entire rooms roaring with laughter. His presence was like a force of nature, commanding, sometimes overwhelming, but always unforgettable. For Meadows, these qualities were more than entertaining. They were defining. She recognized that beneath Gleason's thunderous moods was a man who lived to create, a performer who drew energy from laughter the way others draw breath. That was the Gleason she respected, and in many ways, the Gleason she quietly defended when others could only see the tempest. Their connection was not the love affair the gossip columns so eagerly imagined. It was, instead, a partnership of a rarer kind, one grounded in trust, admiration, and the unspoken understanding that together they had created something extraordinary. On screen, they gave audiences one of the most beloved marriages in television history. Off-screen, they maintained a complicated but genuine affection, a reminder that bonds forged in the crucible of creative struggle can be just as enduring and just as meaningful as romance. In the end, the legacy of Jackie Gleason and Audrey Meadows was not simply about comedy. It was about alchemy. It was about two contrasting personalities whose differences somehow created harmony, whose battles became banter, and whose respect for one another transformed conflict into timeless art. In June of 1987, as Jackie Gleason's health declined and the end drew near, Audrey Meadows reached out one last time. It was not a call made by Alice Cramden to her husband Ralph, but by Audrey to Jackie. Two people bound by decades of shared history, laughter, and the strain of a partnership that had defined them both. Gleason's once booming voice was frail, his trademark vitality slipping away. Yet in that fragile moment, the connection between them was unmistakable. Meadows remembered her words clearly. "Jackie, I just called to tell you I loved you." His reply, soft, but still carrying the weight of his indomitable spirit, was simple, almost defiant. "I knew what I was doing." It was a brief exchange, but it spoke volumes. Beneath the battles of ego and control, beneath the tensions that had marked their working years, there remained respect, affection, and an enduring acknowledgement of what they had built together. For Meadows, that final conversation was not just a farewell, it was a confirmation that their complicated partnership had always been rooted in something deeper than conflict. After Gleason's passing, Meadows was approached with a request that stunned her: to deliver a eulogy in character, stepping once more into Alice Cramden's shoes to bid farewell to Ralph. To executives and promoters, the gesture may have seemed fitting, even sentimental. But for Meadows, it was unthinkable. She rejected the idea outright. "I told them," she later recalled, "I would no more come into the kitchen as Alice than I would fly to the moon." A eulogy? "I think that is the worst thing I have ever heard in my entire life." Her refusal was not born of bitterness, but of principle. To Meadows, Ralph Cramden was not a character who could be buried or mourned on a stage. He lived on in every rerun, in every laugh echoing from black and white television sets across America. to cheapen that with a staged farewell would be, in her view, a betrayal of both Gleason's artistry and the fans' memories. In standing firm, Meadows safeguarded the legacy of the Honeymooners. She understood that Gleason's genius, volatile though it had been, deserved dignity, not spectacle, and she recognized that Alice and Ralph Cramden were more than roles. They were symbols of a timeless era in television, immortalized not by grand gestures, but by the authenticity of their performances. Her decision was, in many ways, her final act of loyalty. In life, she and Gleason had created one of television's most enduring marriages. In death, Meadows ensured that both Jackie Gleason and Ralph Cramden would remain larger than life, untouched, unburdened, and forever cherished. At 73, Audrey Meadows finally broke her long silence to reveal the emotional toll behind her legendary work with Jackie Gleason. In interviews and personal letters, she painted a complex portrait of the man who was both a creative genius and a deeply flawed individual. Her reflections uncovered the sacrifices, pressures, and constant tension hidden beneath the humor and light-hearted banter fans adored. Meadows described how Gleason's remarkable talent came with relentless demands and unpredictable moods, requiring her to develop incredible emotional endurance. She recalled the ongoing balancing act of supporting his explosive energy while maintaining her own strength and professionalism. This candid confession reshaped the way many viewed their iconic partnership, unveiling the personal costs overshadowed by fame and laughter. She spoke openly of the exhaustion, of walking into the studio each day knowing that anything could happen. Sometimes, Gleason's brilliance would light up the room, filling the set with laughter and momentum. Other times, his temper would cloud everything, leaving the cast and crew tense, wary of missteps. For Meadows, survival meant adapting constantly, staying calm, keeping her poise, and never letting frustration seep into her performance. Yet she also admitted that these struggles created a strange, unbreakable bond between them. Gleason tested her, pushed her, and often left her drained, but he also inspired her. His unpredictable energy forced her to rise higher, sharpening her timing and deepening her portrayal of Alice. In her later years, Meadows reflected that the very chaos that made the Honeymooners so difficult to produce was also what made it timeless. She also reflected on the hidden loneliness of those years, how the relentless pace of live television left little time for rest or personal happiness. For Meadows, success was always entwined with sacrifice, yet she never spoke with bitterness. Instead, she insisted that the struggles were inseparable from the brilliance, that the sparks of tension forged something audiences still treasured decades later. Her honesty also challenged the nostalgic image of classic television, showing that behind every great success were untold struggles and sacrifices. Meadows emphasized the importance of acknowledging the human reality behind legendary shows, a lesson that continues to resonate with audiences and entertainers alike. Audrey Meadows' candid admissions late in life have added a profound new layer of meaning to the Honeymooners' lasting legacy. What once seemed like a simple sitcom about an everyday Brooklyn couple can now be understood as something more layered, more human. Alice Cramden was never just a wife who fired back at her husband's bluster. She became a symbol of endurance, wit, and the quiet strength required of women, both within the story and behind the scenes of television itself. Through Meadows' honesty, Alice emerged as more than a character. She reflected the hidden struggles of countless actresses working in an industry that demanded they yield to powerful men while still carrying the burden of excellence. Meadows revealed how humor could be both a weapon and a shield, and how perseverance in the face of volatility was often the silent cost of professional success. Her reflections also opened a broader conversation about classic television. They reminded fans and historians alike that the magic of those black-and-white episodes came at a price, one paid in long hours, unrelenting pressure, and the emotional strain of working beside towering personalities like Jackie Gleason. And yet, Meadows did not frame her story as one of bitterness. Instead, she spoke with clarity, with compassion, and with an insistence on truth, choosing to honor the brilliance of their collaboration while still acknowledging its challenges. By breaking her silence after decades, Meadows cemented her lasting impact, not only as a gifted performer, but as a courageous voice who gave context to one of television's greatest legacies. Her story continues to inspire both fans and creators, encouraging a deeper appreciation for the very real human beings behind Hollywood's most enduring myths. If you found this story about Audrey Meadows and Jackie Gleason fascinating, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join our community. Subscribe now for more deep dives into Hollywood's most intriguing untold stories and legendary stars. Don't forget to like this video if it surprised you, and share your thoughts in the comments below. What did you find most shocking or inspiring about their relationship? Your engagement helps us bring you more amazing content, so subscribe and stay tuned for the next episode. Thanks for watching.